Now, the United Nations is warning the coronavirus crisis has put the world on the brink of a hunger pandemic. 265 million people could face acute food shortages by the end of the year. That is double last year's projections. CBS's Deborah Patta has more.
This is what hunger looks like when it spills over into the streets. A food stampede in Kenya's largest slum, leaving scores injured and 2 dead. White flags waved by defeated families in Peru, signaling to authorities they've run out of supplies. A mile-long line for food in India, where workers wait in the hot sun. Protests in Lebanon as food prices surge uncontrollably. Even in the richest countries, the virus has left people hungry, but for the world's poor, it means starvation. Like South Africa, where a national lockdown has led to a sudden loss of work and hunger for millions. Food distribution is weighed down by cumbersome bureaucracy. If you're not on the day's list, there is no food.
These people are desperate. They are hungry and they are angry. Their biggest fear, if the virus doesn't get them, hunger will.
Mduduzi Kamalo has been waiting in line every day for 2 weeks now. His name is never called.
If you are hungry, it's easy to get sick because of stress and everything, yeah.
He was working as a delivery man before the national lockdown dried up his income. His 4 young children used to receive 2 meals a day at their local school, which is now closed.
They know that if I don't get anything for them, it's over.
It's a cry echoed across the globe, prompting a dire warning from the United Nations. The world is facing a famine of biblical proportions. Deborah Patta, CBS News, Johannesburg, South Africa.
These are challenging times for everyone, but caring hasn't stopped.
Empty shelves might become the new normal for a while. Some stores have run out of meat, and there's no sign of when they'll get new deliveries. More than a dozen meat processing factories have been forced to close because of COVID-19. The system requires workers standing close together in a pattern repeated across the country. One gets sick, many others inevitably follow.
In meat processing, the work by its very nature is very crowded. People have to stand very closely together as they're working on the line to process pieces of meat that are going by very, very quickly.
The closure of factories from Missouri to Colorado, from Virginia to South Dakota, creates a real problem in the supply chain. Farmers now have thousands of animals they need to feed and house, not something they'd budgeted for.
We've got to be able to move our cattle further along in the process, and right now there's a bottleneck in our supply chain that's really causing a lot of issues and some concern for our producers.
Donald Trump is so concerned about supermarkets running out of meat that he's used an old wartime law to keep the meat processing factories open. He's designated them as critical infrastructure, but unions are concerned that that might mean workers' safety is put at risk. They're worried federal guidelines will be ignored. One expert says a safe workforce means less threat to the food supply.
We're looking at risks of outbreaks if we don't practice these infection control measures. Or, on the other hand, we're looking at some possible reduction in food supply, but not necessarily shortage. So it's really necessary to prevent the outbreaks so that the processing facilities can continue to operate.
The US government says it expects the shuttered factories to be back up and running in days, not weeks. But those in the food industry say the impacts of dealing with the virus will last months. Alan Fisher, Al Jazeera, Falls Church, Virginia.
Second Ezra, chapter 15, verse 1. Look here, speak in my people's ear the words of the prophecy that I place in your mouth, say the Lord. See to it that they are written down on paper, because they are reliable and true. Read it again, because they are reliable and true. So these words are reliable and true, and it's written down in paper. All right? It's written down in the Holy Scriptures. That's where these words are from. Don't be afraid of conspiracies against you, and don't be confused by what unbelievers say, because every unbeliever will die in his unbelief. Look, I am bringing disasters over the whole earth. Read it again. Who's bringing disaster over the whole earth? The Most High, Yahweh, said, I am bringing disaster over the whole earth, the sword, hunger, death, and destruction, says the Lord. Because wickedness had covered the whole earth, and the deeds are complete. Therefore, says the Lord, I will no longer be silent about their wicked deeds, which they do in their godlessness, nor will I tolerate any longer the things they do wickedly. Look, innocent and righteous blood calls out to me. Who is the innocent and the righteous? You so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. You are the innocent and the righteous blood. All right, those that have passed away and gone to the spiritual realm. And the souls of the just cry out constantly. I will surely avenge them, says the Lord, and will receive all their innocent blood to myself. So the hunger, the sword, the death, and the destruction that's coming upon this whole earth is for the Lord avenging the blood of his saints, which are the Israelites, which are you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. Verse 10, look, my people are led like sheep to slaughter. I will no longer permit them to live in the land of Egypt. What's that land of Egypt? It's AKA America. America is Egypt. America is the new Egypt, AKA Babylon the Great, the whore. But I will bring them out with a great display of my power, and I will strike Egypt with plagues as before, and I will destroy all its land. Exactly. So them same plagues that hit the old Egypt, it's going to hit the new Egypt, which the new Egypt is America. And it said what? And I will destroy all its land. So all America will be destroyed. Let Egypt howl for its very foundations because of the plague of beating and punishment inflicted by the Lord. Who is doing this inflicting? Who is bringing this beating, this punishment? The Lord, Yahweh, by Hashem Yahweh Shai. Let the farmers who work the ground howl because because they won't have enough seed, and their trees will be devastated by blight, hail, and terrible storms. How terrible it will be for the world and those who live in it. The sword and distress draw near, and nations will rise against nation to fight with spears in their hands. All right, and that's what you're gonna start to see. All right, you're finna have these food riots, these race riots. All right, Civil War, World War III, all these things are coming, man, and it's gonna hit this whole world. You're about to be living in a time that it's never been a time like this before in the history of mankind. These are the days that's drawn upon us. Verse 16, human beings won't be able to trust each other. Exactly. As they grow strong against each other, they will pay no respect to their king or to the powerful chief or their great men. And you see that now with all these so-called Edomites going out and protesting because they're tired of sitting in their homes. All right, now they about to start having no respect for their kings and no longer listening to the powerful chief or their great men. They're no longer finna care. Verse 17, someone will want to go into a city and won't be able. Man, tell me these scriptures ain't bad, man. This is a bad book when you understand it, man. You so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans need to wake up. Man, the Most High is bad, man. All praise to Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai. Verse 18. Cities will be thrown into confusion because of their pride. Houses will be destroyed. People will be afraid. People will have no mercy on their neighbors. They will cause their neighbors trouble by breaking into their houses with swords to pillage their property because they are hungry for bread and great distress. All praises to Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai. Double honors to the elders, a great millstone. Honor to all the brethren out here doing the work in the will of the Father in truth and sincerity. Shalom.